That's right, it's me, John Park, and here we are in John Park's workshop. Hello, everyone, and thank you for stopping by. I have all sorts of fun stuff in store for you today, so I hope you're prepared to enjoy it. First off, thanks for stopping by, and also thanks to all the people for stopping by over in Discord, where we've got a whole bunch of chat action going on. And I'll also be keeping my eye over on the YouTube chat, so hey, thanks for coming by there. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitch, sorry, I am not keeping an eye on those streams because I just have the two eyes, and I just can't manage one more chat. I promise you that. Let me pop out the chat on my YouTube here and have a look. Oh, hey, Matambale, how you doing? Hey, Yannick from Switzerland, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. So, let's get going, huh? First off, the jobs board, jobs.adafruit.com. Check it out, because we've got a free jobs board. I've also got an airplane going by. Did you hear that? I'll bet you did. So, check out our free jobs board. Whoa, that's not it. There it is. Ooh, am I doing tunnel vision? I didn't mean to. I thought I had fixed that. Here, how about this one instead? There you go. There's a browser that's not acting funny. So look at these jobs. You can post for free if you're looking to hire someone. You can post your resume if you're looking to get a job or a gig or a contract thing. Some of them are freelance. Some of them are full-time. Here's a simple coding job gig that someone posted a little while ago. So that one seems like it's up for grabs. Go check it out, would you? That's jobs.adafruit.com. And what else have we got? Let's, oh, I know. How about a coupon code? Would you like a coupon code? There it is. Boing! B-O-I-N-G, boing. And that is good for 10% off in the Adafruit store on anything you desire, as long as you don't desire software, gift certificates, or subscriptions. But for all the real stuff, the goods, and boy, there's a lot of good stuff. There's all sorts of, I can barely keep track of all the good stuff that's new in the store. So go check out adafruit.com/new. That's one way to see what's new. And I do have one recommendation, but before we leave this, let's just say once again, boing, because that's going to get you 10% off. But here's my recommendation. I have in mind a product of the week, and that product of the week is the Verdure. This was actually a suggestion by C. Grover in our chat. I forget what project I was working on, but he said, hey, have you looked at this thing? And I didn't even know we had it. I had missed this one somehow. This is a buck boost converter. What the Verdure can do is it can boost or buck voltage anywhere from 3 volts to 12 volts into a nice clean 5. I think it's 5.2 volts, which is what makes some devices happier. I could be wrong on that, but it may just be a straight 5. I can't remember. But this thing is kind of incredible. Now, it's not the ideal thing for the job if you know what battery you're going to plug into or what source you're going to plug into. But what I realize is this thing is fantastic when you maybe kind of need like just a little emergency device to have on hand to solve problems when you're trying to power 5-volt devices. So you can grab a 9-volt battery, you can grab a 3-volt lithium, you can grab 12 volts, you could probably do it off of a dry cell. I haven't tried that. In fact, let me show you over at the workbench. Let's pop over to the bench cam, and I will show you the Verdure in action. So keep in mind, that's what it looks like. I assembled mine, and I actually hid it away inside of, here, let me pop up a little side camera here. Hello. So I popped my Verdure into some heat shrink tubing there, and I've just got 2 wires coming out of it for the positive and ground. And then I've plugged in to the USB port a USB to micro B cable, and then I have a Circuit Playground Express on the other end with our little case on it. So this wants a 5-volt, so you can use your sort of typical battery charger for a phone type of thing, but with this Verdure in here, I can grab this 9-volt, and let's get the polarity right, and you'll see this starts up and does its little thing. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. How about, where's my, there we go. So you can see I've got this little Verdure here, and 9 volts is firing up my project, but then I've got 4 AA's here. That'll work too. And voila, it pops on. And check this out. Here's a little CR123A battery. You find these in some cameras, in alarms, things that need to be sort of out and reliable for a long time because these have a super long shelf life on them. This one says 2027 on it. I even have some tactical flashlights that use these. And check it out, it's 3 volts and that'll fire it up too. So I thought this thing is really super cool because it'll get you out of trouble when you're just not quite sure what battery you might have on hand, and it'll power up your device. I think it'll power with a 0.5 amp, so it's a 500 milliamp at maybe the 12 volt. I forget, it varies depending on the voltage that you're giving it, how solid that current rating is, I think. But it's pretty excellent, so check it out, especially if you have maybe a little kit of stuff that you bring with you when you're not sure what you're going to be facing on a gig or in the field. So that's my my little recommendation this week is the Verdure. Anyone else have any experience with this thing? Tried them out? Mr. Certainly says CR123A, so expensive. Yeah, they're not cheap. I usually buy them in every couple of years. I end up buying a little box of them online because I use them in remote alarm things. Could you get 5 volts out of a lemon and 2 forks, asks Yannick. I would love to see that. The other thing, actually, I'm curious is I couldn't get there was not enough current on a single 3-volt coin cell, but I wonder if you stacked up 2 or 3 of them, or 4 of them, could you get 12 volts out of 4 coin cells and like the 2032s, is that the CR2020, whatever his name is? You know the ones, the big coin cells. Anyway, that is my recommendation. I think that thing is super cool. Someone asks over on YouTube, does it have protection against reverse polarity? I believe it does, in fact. Let's pop open the product page for that. Oh, Noe says that they used that in their dice roller project. They have a 3D printed domed dice roller that you can press a button and it kicks the dice up for you to roll it. And they used that in there. That's cool. So let me bring my browser window back up here for you. And I'll hide that. So here is Verdure 5-volt USB buck boost, 500 milliamps from 3 volts. Oh, you get an amp if you're doing the buck, which is the 5 volt to 12 volt. So there you go. I'll bet you we've got polarity protection in here. Does it mention it? Does not mention it. Wait, let me look for the word reverse. Sometimes that'll be in there. Reverse, no. It says the 5.2, okay, so it's 5.2 volts. It's safe for 5-volt electronics like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, BeagleBones. I will bet you that's got reverse polarity protection, but please look into it more before you test that, because I'm not guaranteeing your part doesn't die if you try. Should I try it right now? Let's try it. How about I try it right now? Let's see what happens. All right. So I'm just gonna use my little 3-volt. Here's my little 3-volt battery. Someone tell me in the chat not to do this if you think it's a terrible idea, but what the hell? When you don't want to gamble on power. Okay, so there I'm going to place, don't see the prerequisite diode for reverse protection, says C. Grover. Uh-oh. All right, then I won't risk it if you're looking at that and you don't see diode for protection. That would surprise me if Lady Ada didn't make this protected, but I'm going to trust C. Grover on this and not blow up my Verdure. So maybe disaster averted there. And by the way, I'm doing kind of a silly thing here. Where did I put it? That's a little bit silly to do it that way, to just put some wires out of there. What you really want to do is plug in something like that. If you can get the little type of button connector that you see on 9 volts, you'll also find them. I think we sell these in the store. I'm not sure. Got this somewhere, but there's a 12-volt AA pack, 8 AA pack that uses those two. So something where you've got polarity protection is a good idea. Always got to pay attention, but even these, if you were to put a 2.1 millimeter barrel jack on there, that would be a good idea. That's asking for disaster when you just put bare wires on there, but there you go. Yeah, it's got a terminal block on it, so you screw in your wires and off you go. And what about the lemon? I'm not testing the lemon. I suspect the current might be a little low. All right, so hey, let's move on from that, but that's the Verdure. And thanks again for the suggestion, C. Grover. I had never noticed that we have that, and it is way cool. All right, well, you know what I think? It is time for this. And by this, I mean the MakeCode Minute. So let's put me over there. Hi. And what I want to talk about in MakeCode Arcade is how to bounce a projectile or an object around your scene. It is this simple. So you'll see in my scene here, I just have an on-start block. I'm creating it could be a character, could be anything, a projectile, food, enemy. They actually will all work in this case. So I'm just creating my sprite, and it's this pink sort of circle. And then I'm using from the sprites dropdown, we have a bunch of these effects in the dropdown for this one block. So if you grab one of these, set stay in screen, you can then change the dropdown. So I'm using 3 of them. They're all from the same one? Yes. So the first one is keeping my object in the screen, so it's not gonna leave. That one may actually not be necessary in this case, because the next one I've got is bounce on walls, and you can turn these on and off. The next is show physics, and that's just going to turn on some values for me of the position and the velocity on X and the velocity on Y. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm giving my sprite a velocity to begin with, and that means that it's kind of an impulse when the scene starts, when the code runs, when this on start block goes. It's going to send this sprite at 50 units positive on X and positive on Y. So it'll go diagonally and to the bottom right based on our coordinate system. So here we go. I'm going to turn this on, and let's open this up. And you can see that is how easy it is to get an object bouncing. Now you can then end up controlling some of these parameters, like adjusting the impulse of that velocity, or changing the direction of it using the controller, like a regular player control. And we're going to use this as the foundation of some games. You can imagine this is pretty convenient if you're doing things like Pong, or something we're going to look at in a little bit, which is Arkanoid. So bouncing stuff, pretty darned easy to get started with using just these simple blocks here. And that is how you can make something bounce inside of MakeCode Arcade. Yeah, that's an excellent point that Mr. Certainly makes, that could be the DVD logo. That would work really well. In fact, let's see, can we mock up one real quick? So all I'm going to do is make this bigger. We'll make it a 32 by 32 sprite. I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to grab a slightly bigger brush. We'll grab this medium brush, and let's see, we'll just make it white on black. So D, V, D. There we go. Let me turn off the show physics. And there's a very sui generis, lopsided DVD logo. And you can see, actually, this is worth noting, I am bouncing off of the constraints of the canvas size of my sprite, not the location of the pixels. And that's really important when you start getting into games making things that do collision, is that the blank space in your sprite will matter. And so you may wonder, here's a little advanced trick that I've learned. How do you, if you have an object shaped like this, how do you get that to bounce off of the very top and the very bottom of this? And one way is to create a custom canvas size for your sprite. That is something you can do over in JavaScript. So let's make this a lot bigger so you can see it. So this is the JavaScript for those blocks. And here we'll see on line 7 we have our pixel sprite editor. I can just click on this little palette icon and open that up. Or I can click on the little ellipsis here and undo the code folding. And you can see there's my DVD artwork in sort of the ASCII form. And all I'm going to do is delete all these blank lines. Whoops. Let's just highlight and delete, highlight and delete. And now when I go into the pixel editor, you can see I've got this custom 32 wide by 20 high. And I'll fill in the side here. Let's say that's our logo. So now if we play this, it's a more satisfying bounce because it's actually hitting the constraints of the object. So there's a little bonus for you, is how the heck do you make canvases at a weird size, because in the pixel editor you can just cycle through some presets, which is convenient and gets you up and running quickly, but you can see it doesn't help us if we're trying to make our DVD logo bounce properly. Oh, it's funny, when I resized it, I think it pushed the actual existing pixels up to the top and added the extra lines to the bottom. So there you go, DVD logo. Bouncy lemons, anyone? Someone asks. Oh, all right, I can't stop with this. I love this bouncy. Check it out. There's a lemon. Done. Bouncy lemon. Next request. What do you got? There's a bouncy lemon. It's just that easy. Come on. I was talking to Noe earlier, and he's getting excited about the MakeCode as he started bringing in his own graphics. If you check out online, he's got a cool demo going of a game that looks kind of like Defender meets Flappy Bird, and he's got a cool space background. So once you, if you're a graphic artist and you like working in something like Photoshop, now that we can move our sprites in, as I showed last week, using the asset tool, it's pretty cool. All right, so before we go crazy with any more bouncing stuff, oh, here's a question. Nice, JP, can you switch back to the block editor when you edit the ASCII? Yeah, you definitely can. So in the JavaScript here, I've gone and edited this. When I head back to blocks, oh, let me actually make that a better demo. Let's change this so that it's a weird size. So we'll add some. You can use zeros or you can use the period to add transparent pixels to these. Oops. All right, so let's, this blank space here doesn't matter, that'll get taken care of. So you can see I've now made a funky size, 16 by 21. When I head over to blocks, it doesn't complain. It maintains that, and it's still got that size. So you will find sometimes if you get just you make a slight type error over in JavaScript, it might still run the game while you're in JavaScript, but it gets confused trying to convert it over to blocks. So that's one thing I've found, is that occasionally I have trouble getting back over to blocks, and I'm not always sure why. So I kind of save a copy in both forms as I'm working. All right, so now let's get on to the project of the week. So the project of the week is this remake of Arkanoid. And so first, let me just show you a little demo of it in action. So here's what I've built. I've got and you're probably not hearing sound off of this, but I've got a little sound effect. I've got a sort of a replica of the graphics. My palette I haven't changed, and that's something I might show in the future, is how to change the color palette, but I'm using the default MakeCode Arcade color palette. And you can see I've got a fairly faithful Arkanoid breakout style of action, and depending on where you hit the ball on the paddle, you get the proper angle. And I mentioned yesterday on Show and Tell, this was a part of this project that I didn't figure out on my own. I had gotten pretty far, but I only had exact incident angles. Didn't matter where I hit the ball. It kind of started at a 45-degree angle, and it stayed on a 45-degree angle. So in order to change that behavior so that you can hit it off to the left if you use the left side of the paddle, or hit it off to the right if you use the right side, like this, that's kind of critical for this game if you want to aim stuff. So it's going almost straight up and down. There, it'll glance off to the left. So what I did was I found that Alex K, who's a user over on the MakeCode forums, had made this fantastic breakout game. And so he's got custom extensions for doing really great intro graphics, turning type into graphics. And he's also got a very nice gameplay. So if you look here, let's start his game. Oh, let me hit play. So there you can see he's got the nice angles going there. He used a cool technique for his bricks, which are made from a tile map rather than sprites. And I suspect he did that for reasons of performance, because as you start to get a lot of sprites on screen, the frames per second will decrease. You'll slow the game down. But I looked into his code because he had shared it, and you can just pop in here and either look at the blocks or look at the JavaScript. And I found a really great technique he was using to adjust the velocity on X axis of the ball, as well as flip the ball up when we hit the paddle. And so that bounce demo that I showed before, that's actually only good for walls. And so in this case, I'm using sprites. So I've got a sprite ball hitting, which is considered a projectile, and then I'm hitting a sprite player, which is my paddle. So here you can see the setup on this. I'm creating my paddle. I'm creating my little graphic that I made. Again, here's a custom size I did, 32 by 8. I actually made that over an ACE Sprite software, pixel software. Then I generate my background image, which I just did as a checkerboard of black and white to give, or blue and white to give me a kind of a dark blue. And then I create a tile map, and this tile map is going to determine both where certain graphics happen as well as certain behaviors of the bouncing. I think in this version I'm no longer using this, but previously when I hit this red tiles, that's when I lost a life and the ball reset. Now I think I'm doing it based on height on the X, or rather on the Y axis. But you can see here, this is the image of that little sort of pipe that's on the left side and the right side. These are the little corner pieces, and then this is the bar that goes across the top. So those are the sprites that are tiled, or the tile maps that are tiled. And then I'm setting up my rows. Here I could use some arrays, but I'm not. I'm just doing it kind of in a naive way where there's an array of sprites. So I just copied and pasted this one brick sprite and set its position manually for the row and column that it's on. So that's not super efficient, but you can see I'm generating a lot of sprites. So it starts to become a question of performance, and still seems pretty playable though. So here is this tricky part. This is the part where I had some but not enough of the logic worked out and the math worked out. So what happens when so this block is when sprite of kind projectile overlaps other sprite of kind player. And so you'll get this in the sprites dropdown. It's right here, overlaps. And this is critical for a lot of games, because when a projectile hits an enemy, you blow it up, or when your ball hits your paddle, you bounce it. So what we're doing in here is, the key thing is this. And I put a little comment in here, by the way. You can right-click and add comment. So I have a little comment in here. It says, thanks, Alex K. on MakeCode Forum for this method. So there's a variable I've created called the xdiff. So it's the difference between the x value, the horizontal value of the ball, and the horizontal value of the paddle. When we then adjust this variable called ball vx, so that's the velocity on the x-axis, we take the absolute, so we don't want negative values, we take the absolute of the that difference, so the difference between those two values, positions on screen of the ball and the paddle. If they're identical, then the ball will travel straight up and down when it hits that paddle, because there's no multiplication of that value against the existing maximum value that it can be on x divided by the paddle width plus 2. So this, I actually chatted with my friend Todd Kurt, to say, hey, what do you think is exactly going on here? I want to make sure I understand it. And he said, oh yeah, so it looks like essentially that difference between the position of the ball and the position of the paddle gives you sort of the vector that the ball bounces off at, but it's also going to adjust that maximum speed, so that maximum Vx, depending on the width of the paddle. So this part, I have to still add the code to change the paddle width, but you know there's some power-ups in Arkanoid where the paddle gets big or the paddle gets small, so this affects the speed of it. Then we're setting the ball's y to whatever that ball x position is minus the current speed, and then if that's a negative, let's see, so if the difference between those two, the paddle and the ball, is nothing, right, so they end up, the paddle hits dead center, then we're setting that Vx to the Vx multiplied by -1, so that's where it sends it straight up. Then here's where we're actually, so what we've been doing up here is just constructing these variables, so Vx and Vy, the velocity on x, velocity on y. This is the block that actually takes those values and puts them onto the ball. So you'll find this up here, sprite, set velocity to, actually it's easier to see up here, sprite, set velocity to Vx, Vy. So you remember in my sort of DVD logo, Bouncing Lemon logo, that was that sort of velocity impulse that I gave it at the beginning. I just said you're headed in this direction. So that, rather than changing those as we go, we're just setting those variables and then plugging them into here. And then I'm playing a tone, so you're not hearing it on there. But let me show you it on the overhead, and you'll see about, we'll switch to this one. And let me see if I can mix in the sound. I won't hear it, but let me know if that's too loud. So you can see I can walk it off to the left a little by, oops, I say I can. Also right now I have the ball getting destroyed when it goes below a certain height, and then it waits for me to press the button to launch the next ball if I have enough lives. If I don't have enough lives, which you can see in the hearts in the upper left there, then I'm gonna end the game. So here we'll try to glance it off. So I got on the very edge. I'll go left. Let me try to go back right. So boop. And there you go. And it's actually simpler than I thought. I used to think that it had something to do with kind of the speed that the paddle was traveling in a certain direction. It's actually just, is it to the left of center or is it to the right of the center of paddle? And that may actually be as simple as it is in real Arkanoid. I'm not sure, but it seems right. It feels pretty good the way it plays. So let's see, bring that back up. What else, if there's any? Yeah, let me look at, oh, there was a previous attempt. By the way, here's another trick. If you hold down your Command or Control key on your keyboard and use the wheel, you can zoom out quickly and zoom in. So scroll wheel and controller command, and then you can move around that canvas. So what I'm looking for is my hitting the walls. So here is okay, I'm still doing it that way. Yeah, so when my projectile hits, you seeing this? Yep. Hits the wall, that's that red wall in the tile map, which is the ones I put down the bottom. I shake my camera. I destroy the ball with fire effect for just a moment, for 20 milliseconds. Then I change my life by -1, and I play a little sort of fluttering bass sound. And when, let me show you what's happening when we hit bricks. So I'm considering the bricks to be food as well. So when my projectile, which is the ball, overlaps another sprite and then of type food, if the ball is traveling in a negative direction, or yeah, so if it's traveling, if the ball velocity x is greater than 0, so in positive, which is up, am I right? No, it is headed down. Okay, I got to remember how to do this. So when the ball is traveling down, if I hit a projectile, then I'm setting the velocity to whatever it was inverted, so multiplied by -1, so that I bounce. Then I destroy that other sprite, so that's what gets rid of the brick, and I add 200 to my score, and then I play a tone. And I don't know if there's a lot more to it, honestly. So yeah, that I'm not using yet. I thought of doing like a screen flash effect, but it doesn't seem to happen in Arkanoid. Some of us misremembered that, I think. And this is my paddle reset. So when I hit that A button, when I'm starting a new ball, it pops the paddle to sort of the middle of the screen, and so the ball always comes from the same direction. So putting this up on the big screen again, you can see. So in the simulator, you can, in browser, just play it with your left and right arrow keys. And you can use, I think it's the space bar for A. So here, let me let that one go, and it dies. Now I'll just press the space bar, and it launches the new ball, and you can see it repositioned me. And I set this to always hit the paddle if you don't move it right after you hit the ball. And that's about that. So that is our project for the week, which is the remake of our good friend, whoops, hi, it's me, of our good friend Arkanoid, which is a great, great game. And really the only downside to this project is that I have managed to procrastinate a lot playing on my Picade. I've got the Arkanoid as well as the NES Arkanoid. And boy, the arcade Arkanoid is designed to eat quarters. It's really hard, especially with this joystick compared to the thumb pad. For some reason, that thumb pad on the Pi Gamer is, even though it's not reading it analog, just something about that motion makes it a lot easier, I find, to play the game. So it's more playable. And you can imagine you can go into here and adjust things like your initial velocity to be faster. So when I start the game, you can see here in this ball setup, I've got velocity going -50 and 50. Is that where I'm using it? Yeah, I had it in a couple places, but I think that is where I'm setting it. So you can adjust that, and the game that Alex K created, he did each level. So there's, I think, 3 levels in it or 4 levels in it. And each level you get a different arrangement of the blocks, which is cool, and you get faster, higher velocity ball to increase your skills. Mr. Certainly says over in the Discord chat, I wonder if we can find an original Arkanoid arcade trackball. Was it a trackball game? Gosh, I don't even remember that. I thought maybe it was a like a rotary encoder kind of game, weighted, like a nice weighted one, but it all blurs together. Yeah, what was it? Was it a trackball? Trackball would be great. Let's make a trackball, shall we? All right, so that is what I've got for you. If you are interested in going shopping, head over to Adafruit, check out some of the new products, and use that coupon code BOING, because that'll get you 10% off in the store. And with that, I'm going to go work on this guide, so there will be a Learn Guide out soon for you if you want to play some Arkanoid and dig into how it's played. And once again, I want to give huge thanks to Alex K. I don't know you, Alex K, but thanks for the fine work you did on your breakout game. It was instrumental in me getting this thing to work as well as it does. And hey, isn't that the nature of sharing in this open source world of ours? So that concludes John Park's workshop. Thank you for stopping by. I will see you next time.
Wow.